You're listening to Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
Wow, you can really tell the difference with these new cameras. Tell us about what you got going on with these cameras there, Taylor.
We got new cameras.
Okay, good. Thank you. We got new cameras, new lights. He's really picked up the quality. Not that it was bad before, but now it looks like CBS News. I'll get this crud out of my throat. Today I have Sanford Mason from the American Legion here in town, and they got lots going on, and they do a lot of good work for the veterans and for our community. And we're going to find out what their schedule is for the summer, and how does one become a member of the Legion? How does the Legion operate? I did not know until our pregame conversation, you might say, that it's chartered by the U.S. Congress. It's not just a club of guys that got together. This is a government organized and sponsored event and organization for veterans. And as a son of a veteran, as a son or a grandson of a veteran, I have a lot of veterans in my family. I really appreciate what they do, because serving your country, even in peacetime, is a stressful thing, right? Because you never know what's going to happen, and you never know when you're going to be called upon. But I'll probably go over some of my family history a little bit in the show. But anyway, I'm glad to see you here.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Oh, it's my honor. It really is, because these kind of groups, I think, keep the memory alive of what these men and women have done, and sacrifices have been made, not just by them, but their families. And I think that's important to know, because sometimes we take that for granted. We get up and do our business, and we don't really think about the fact that, it'd be a very extraordinary event to have some sort of a military crisis on our soil, and like 9/11. But for a lot of people, that's a daily thing. We see what's going on. So,
our young soldiers who have to deploy at a moment's notice get called into different areas of the world to help out with anything from a natural disaster to helping the local governments quell riots to whatever. It's really stressful on them. Or,
right.
It doesn't matter if they're in the Army or Navy, what other service.
Well, before we jump into all that, I want to go over the sponsors, because this is what gets these things out there. This is what makes it possible. Taylor got to pay for these toys somehow. So anyway, Our Place, I bet you've been there before.
Oh, yeah.
And I was a big supporter of veterans and the police and the people that serve, first responders of all kinds. Our Place restaurant, everybody knows where it is, on the corner of the Highway and Dallsbury. It's been there a long time. Also, Gina's Pizza has been open for about 3 months, and it's a really great place. It really is. Yeah, now, you're a long-time Burleson resident, so you probably remember Gina's in its original form, right?
Oh, yeah.
Have you been there since he's taken over?
Not since Otto's had it.
Yeah.
We went through, of course, being very young and going, and that was a great treat to have Gina's and go over there and even eat or take out, and then the family that carried it up till recently. And then I haven't been in since Otto took it, but it's always been, Gina's was a fixture in the Burleson
Exactly.
area.
It's the first restaurant I ever ate in Burleson. I taught here beginning in 88, and then I moved here in 91, still in the same house now. And, you had to go by it. The food's great, and the atmosphere's great, and the service is great. Everything you think about with Our Place, Gina's has it. Also, our friends over at Wild Cigar and Culture over on the Standard on Hidden Creek. You can go there and have a cigarette, have a drink. Not cigarette. What am I saying? Cigar. Oh, my God. I hope Chris wasn't listening to that. Have a cigar and a drink. And I don't know where that came from. Have a cigar and a drink. Or even if you're not really big into cigars, it could help you with that. Or if you know somebody that is, it's Father's Day Sunday, so you can get a gift certificate for them. So they got a great selection. So thank you, Chris and Nathan, and forgive my faux pas. Also, Tiffany Nico and Local Life Magazine, it's already out. It's going to be at 30,000 homes. It's going to be at several retail outlets. When I go, like the last time I had my car inspected, I was waiting on it. There's several copies of it on the coffee table while I was waiting. So it gets a lot of eyeballs on that. So thank you, Tiffany, for what you do, Local Life Magazine or locallifetx.com. And thank you to Southern Jim. I don't know if you've been here before. Is there, I'm sure you have some female relatives in your life. Do you have any kids or anything like that?
I've got a son that's he's actually lives in South Carolina.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
recently got married, so
There you go.
Yeah.
New daughter-in-law. Okay.
I got to meet her at Christmas, so that was fun.
Okay, and so you could probably, next Christmas you can take her a gift from Southern Gym, or next time he visits and things like that. Southern Gym. It's my wife works here, so I'm very partial to it. So anyway, they can do designs, cleaning, repairs. That's a big part of their business. Also, they have a great inventory, and they have used Rolexes, which not many people carry in this area. So there you go. Used Rolexes. I mean, they collect them like antiques. It's very. I mean, they're all great. They all work, but a lot of people really get into those things. I was surprised, but I learn everything all the time. All right. Thank you also to Two Maids, Brenda Ramirez at twomaidescleaning.com/Burleson or 817-764-0733. They have all these different plans, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever. You pay them based on your satisfaction and rating that you give them. And it's a great program. It's a great program that some of us in our BNI group, which Gayla and Brenda are members of, a lot of us use it for our parents, because it's getting to that point, they need a little help. And so that's a really good thing. So anyway, Two Maids at 817-764-0733. Give Brenda a call and she'll set you right up. Also, our friends at Old Pro Roofing here in Burleson, local guys, lots going on. Had some bad weather up north of us here a bit in the DFW area, Collin County, whatnot. And they do business spread in a 2-hour radius. So they're not just strictly, in this area. They'll go where the jobs are. And you want somebody you can call and not have to worry about where they are. Right? You know where Old Pro is, right here in Old Town. So 817-734-2756 will get you John Williams, and he's a really fine young man, and he'll tell you what's the truth about your roof. It's great, it's poor, or in between. You won't get some sort of dramatic upsell or anything like that. And our friends over at Camco, Sammy Campbell, Candy Gow, Sammy at 817-778-4592, Candy at 817-925-2661. Mortgage rates are all over the place. I don't even know what's going on with them, but they do. So if you're looking for a refinance or new mortgage, they are the people to talk to. I've used them before in a couple of other spots they've been in. Now they have their own outfit. I highly recommend them because it's a complex situation and they hold your hand through it. They'll bring you a Kleenex when you start bursting out to tears when you see all the papers you have to sign. So, so it's a good experience. And they'll tell you what you need to know. So give them a holler over at Camco. They're here in town, right across from Fish City over in that B&G complex. And our friends over at Withington Agency, particularly Jeff Kelly at 817-781-0546, or his office number, 817-720-6300 will get you the Withington Agency. Jeff has been in real estate for quite some time now. He's going to be in the show about 2 weeks from tomorrow, and we're going to talk about what's going on in real estate here in Burleson, because it's not quite the same in Burleson as it is in a lot of places. You like Mr. Mason, you've been here a long time. You've seen Burleson change totally, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we used to have a city limit sign that said 1,910 people, from the mid-'70s. So to where we're at now, it's a huge growth.
Yeah, I've been here since 88, at least, professionally, so to speak. And it just amazed me how much, particularly in the last 15 years. Yeah. And I like it, and Jeff Kelly can help you find you a place here because, it's very competitive getting a house here in Burleson. I talked to other real estate agents, and they say the schools and the police are the two biggest draws, and the fire department as well, first responders, I'll put it that way. And then all the business opportunities and nice places to go now and all that. So let's talk about the American Legion. How long has your chapter been operating?
Well, the American Legion Post here in Burleson is on its 15th year now. It's called Burleson American Legion Post 235. Mm-hmm. We chartered it, say, 15 years ago and moved a couple places through the town, but the last several years we've been welcomed at Boulevard Baptist Church over on the 35 is a meeting place, and we meet the second Thursday of each month, starting at 6 p.m. over there in their office area. Mm-hmm. Church has been wonderful as a sponsor for us, and we like to help them out as well when they have services that we can help them with and events. So present the flags for them on Flag Day, do what we can. So past two ministers have just been really, really great to work with, and You got to remember Burleson here, our post, American Legion post, is kind of unique, is we're a community service post. You can see American Legion areas in different cities you go to, and they'll have their own building, or some of them will have a bingo game, some of them will have a bar, clubhouse, whatever you want to call it, set up inside. When we chartered the current post here in Burleson, we did it to be dedicated to community service.
So there's no bar at Burleson?
No, sir.
Okay.
No. And I've had those phone calls. Hey, where do you guys meet? Where do you get a drink at? Well, no.
At Burleson Baptist Church, I don't think that's going to work.
and it's geared towards veterans continuing to serve. And our involvement in the community and in the schools is one of our big issues, our main things here in the community. Of course, helping our veterans and their families when we can as well.
So do you see one day maybe having your own post, or you like it this way?
I would love to have our own post. The cost, and then how do you keep going forward with one? You have to have events, you have to have groups, you have to be able to rent spaces, you have to be able to create funding to keep paying for that building. Several of the American Legion posts in our area, what we call our 6th district, with Burleson, Granbury, and a few others, we don't have a building that's dedicated, but we use community buildings, service rooms, or churches to meet in. And it works out to our advantage because we can detail more of our focus towards our 4 pillars of the Legion and be able to help the local groups more without having to worry about building costs, building maintenance, and things that go with it.
You mentioned the 4 pillars. What are they?
For the American Legion, when the World War I veterans started coming back home in 1919, they started getting groups and meetings, and they originally chartered the American Legion in 1919. Well, that when they set up the initial charter, and then when Congress adopted that and approved that charter for them to be a veterans group they are today, they established 4 core beliefs, and we call those the 4 pillars of the American Legion. They're Veterans Affairs and rehabilitation for our veterans. National security is another one, where we actually have our national commander and other people who testify in front of the Congress and Senate for different things going on. Americanism, and under Americanism, we can have our American Legion youth programs, baseball, junior shooting sports, some other things that do with that. And then our children and youth programs, geared with that here locally, boys state, girls state programs, and then the program that we try to get more word out about right now, and we've had in the past good luck, is our oratorical program. So we have a local post grant of $500 for an oratorical winner, so they can send that to their college of choice when they get in settled in.
You mentioned baseball.
Yeah.
That was my first experience when I was a little kid playing American Legion baseball.
Yeah.
And both tournaments and I believe they sponsored the league I was in North Carolina at the time. And that's a pretty common thing, isn't it?
Yeah, American Legion baseball can be in its own group where they have multiple teams, or like in this area here, trying to sponsor a local team. So, the Burleson Youth Association has a set number of teams, and they're always looking for sponsorship for that. And actually going Wednesday to meet with them about that right? Sponsorship. Yes, sir.
Well, I remember, I just remember that was part of it in American Legion ball when I was in North Carolina. And then we moved back to Texas. And I don't know if it was in Plano at the time. I don't know if Legion sponsored a league then. I think what sponsored my team was like a local gas station or something like that, like it's pretty common. But that's why I was thinking when I was driving up here, is that I've had contact with the American Legion, even though I'm not a veteran myself. And so, because they do all these kind of events. Yeah,
the baseball, soccer's getting to be another thing. And, of course, inside the post, we have youth groups, youth activities we can do as well. So, yeah.
And now, how does one become a member of the Legion?
Well, now under we call the Legion Act, it came out in 2019. If a veteran has served one day of active duty since December 7, 1941 to present, and they are honorably discharged or discharged under honorable conditions, like somebody got injured and had to be medically retired or discharged, then they're eligible to be a member of the American Legion. Some of our other veterans groups, veteran service organizations, they may have criteria that you served in a certain conflict, be a Korea veteran, a Vietnam veteran, Iraqi veteran, something like that. But for the American Legion now, since the Legion Act, it was redid part of the charter of the American Legion through Congress. When President Trump signed that, then it changed that to the current format.
Yeah, well, I know it was been around. This is the longest serving organization, and but I didn't realize it was a congressionally ordained, so to speak, authorized group. You get any funding from Congress? Not enough, I know. But,
No, not really. With our lobbyists, and I hate to use that word lobbyists.
The persuaders,
the
advocates.
People we have veterans who testify at congressional hearings or Senate hearings. The national commander, of course, is always in and out of Washington. But when it comes to the veterans' benefits and what we need at the national and state level, those people who run the national or department levels, their input to our elected officials, that gives us back benefits that help our local groups as well.
And it probably also help out, I'm sure, with returning veterans from more current conflicts and how to access the Veterans Administration and whatnot. One of our former congressmen, Chet Edwards, was really big into that, because they have the big VA hospital down in Waco, and that's still operating, I assume. It's been a long time since I lived in Waco, so.
Yeah,
But it's a
Waco
big
and
effort.
Temple. Of course, Dallas has a big center. The Fort Worth Clinic is amazing. I use it quite a bit, and just really have had wonderful service through that unit.
That's good.
Yeah, they always, everybody that you talk to there wants to say hello and ask if they can help. So,
Well, and I do know our current member, Roger Williams, has been supportive of that as well. I mean, because there's a lot of veterans that live in this DFW area, not just not just because of Carswell and whatnot, but also this area just seems to be a very veteran-friendly part of the country.
oh, big time.
And I have my opinion that the military is very, very high because of what I saw as a teacher. And we were talking about this before the show. I'd see young men that I thought, what are they talking to that recruiter for? Because they don't know, the poor guy, that poor recruiter doesn't know what he's getting, and that kid doesn't know what he's about to ask for. And then I'd see them 3 years later, they'd bring these kids back on these recruiting trips with them, and they'd be 20 pounds heavier in muscle, and they'd look you in the eye and shake your hand like a man. And
Yep. Yes, sir. No, sir.
yes, sir. And it's like, is this the same kid? I really thought this kid was going to be in for a really hard life, and the military gave him purpose. The same thing that happened to my dad. My dad grew up pretty poor in a small town in Oklahoma, literally on the wrong side of the tracks, and ROTC got him a college education. That and my aunt's threats, who basically she said, "You're going to college, boy," and that's all there is to it. And he went to Art and Simmons with ROTC, and then he got out as a second lieutenant, and it gave him a direction. And it gave him some training, and boy, has our family benefited from that, because he did well in his professional career, and he does too. I would also attribute that to what he learned in the Army, right. And so that's why I'm such a big fan of it. And we need to take care of it. And I hear about these stories about what some of these veterans have gone through, and we have an oath and an obligation to take care of them.
Yeah, not everybody is fortunate to get all the help they need, and some don't want the help, which is sad. Others, we have once in a while somebody will fall through the cracks, but with the veterans groups, that's one of our key focuses, to help them get out of those cracks, to introduce them to different people, to different agencies, and say, this can help with this, or we can put you in contact with this person to help, get this benefit or health care or whatever it might be.
So if let's say I come across somebody, a veteran, in my age group, it's probably mostly Iraq, Afghanistan, that's all military action. And if I come across somebody that needs help, I can contact y'all, and y'all can set them in the right spot towards, yes. And I keep saying him. Do you have women members? Or,
oh, yes.
Okay, right. And so you could set them on, a path on where the help is, what government agency they need to deal with or whatnot. So that's one of the best benefits of the American Legion is it's a resource center for veterans.
Yeah, part of is what you just described, is what our service officers get into, is helping the local veterans to those resources. The American Legion in itself has other benefits that we can do as well, where a local veteran were to have a fire in their home or something catastrophic happen, and they need housing for a week, or they need, something happen. We know things happen. We know that we can't be. Everybody doesn't have the good nest egg. A lot of people live paycheck to paycheck, and we've had people, come to us, hey, can I get some help with an electric bill, or can we do this? We can do some of that on a local level. We also, the American Legion has the National Emergency Grant, so we have people who've applied for that a tornado or lightning has damaged the home and they need help with it, and maybe they don't have the proper insurance. So that's for our veterans, that's another avenue that we can help them with.
It's interesting. Yeah, do you never do business, so to speak, or have contacts with our local nonprofits? I do a lot of nonprofit shows, much to my honor, if you will, and like Harvest House owner and Promises Community, all these places that deal with maybe some homeless, or they deal with some people in need. If they're a veteran, do they contact you sometimes and say, hey, we got this guy that's a vet and he doesn't know where to go for this, that, and the other?
We haven't had that yet. I've had some contact through a couple of churches where they've called and said, hey, we've got a veteran that's in our congregation that's needing some help now, or they're having some health challenges as they're getting older, and we've been able to work with them or get them pointed in good directions.
Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Put September 19th on your schedule and come back here, because that's National Giving Day.
Okay.
And what I do is I have, like I said, several nonprofits. And what we'll do is I'll have them all in at one time, and they'll spend 10-minute mini interviews saying, here's what we do. And, if you connect yourself with that group, it's be much to your benefit for your group, because they're all run by women. But they all connect together really, really well, in the sense that they're not very competitive at all. They really support each other. It's not like they think $1 to them or to somebody else is $1 they're not getting there. It's touching to see how mutually supportive they are. What we did last September 20th on Giving Day is we did that show, and then afterwards we recorded the show afterwards and just let them talk with each other, and their friendship and bonds is tight. So you need to come and connect with that group of ladies, because they, Harvest House, Crazy Eights, Homeless Ministry, Promises, those in particular probably occasionally will deal with a veteran.
Okay.
Now the other groups, maybe not as much, like Next Step Women's Center and stuff like that. But as far as the others, they really, it's a really a great community to work with. So you got to connect with them, and they could tell you maybe every now and then if they have a veteran come through, or if they start asking that question, because I don't know if they think to ask it.
Right.
There you go.
Okay.
As far as you talk about some of the stuff you do with the schools, I believe you sent us some pictures and whatnot,
yes,
and other pictures just in general. Taylor, he has them all around. Oh, look at that.
This is from the Burleson Memorial Cemetery for Memorial Day. This is the group that went out, and we every year, working with the city, we go out and we put flags on all of our veterans' headstones out there. We also ask members of the community who have veterans buried out there that may not be marked to let us know, and we've had a couple of people reach out, and we've been able to place markers and identify those as well, so we can add flags to theirs or markers to them. We recently just put out a World War I veterans plaque on a stone out there. Yeah,
really, World War I. My grandfather served that. Right. He was stationed in Washington, and the family story I got was that when it was just about October of 18, his outfit was ready to ship out to go to France. But he was laid up in the hospital with appendicitis, and back then that was more serious than it is now. And so he was going to go on the next month's shipment, and then by the time he was ready to roll, armistice was about to break out. So they put that on hold, and then about a week later, armistice was declared. So he never did have to leave the States. Wow. Yeah, and we're okay with that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Oh yes, Burleson High School. Sergeant Mims.
Yes, sir.
He's still there?
No.
Okay.
Sergeant Mims retired. We've got a new Master Sergeant now working there as a senior enlisted advisor. This picture is from 2 years ago. The young lady standing beside me there, that's Madison Landers. Madison is in the Army now. She was the national champion for the Air Force Junior ROTC air rifle team. She won the national championship for that, and she was also instrumental in the local high school junior shooting sports team that we sponsor with the American Legion and letting them be state champion. So 3 out of the last 4 years, this air rifle team at Burleson High and Centennial students are state champions again.
Right. Apparently there's a Burleson man that's going to be in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is for the parade?
No, sir.
Oh,
this
it's not.
picture is flag retirement.
Oh, okay.
So on Flag Day, June the 14th, we go out and we collect flags throughout the year. Here in Burleson now we have at the Veterans Park by Renfro and 35, and over in front of the sub courthouse, there are 2 flag repository boxes. So if you have a used flag, torn, weathered flag, you can put that in there, and we collect those with the city. I'm housing those now, and right now we're about 1,400 flags that we have gathered up from those boxes, other groups that contact me, citizens, and we will take those, and the bulk of them we will retire on Flag Day on the 14th.
And what happens to these flags?
We have a kind of a home-built incinerator, and the way the American Legion protocol is, we inspect a certain number of the flags. They are declared unserviceable. They're presented to the post commander and his deputies, and then they are retired by burning them to ash. The grommets, a lot of the brass grommets, we collect those, and then there are some scouts that want those brass grommets for some of their little things they do. So it's...
Well, you take the flags pretty seriously.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yes, we do.
That's a sign of our national, our national emblem. So,
well, it's, to me, anybody that would trash the American flag, particularly somebody who lives here, I don't care if they're a citizen or not. If they don't like it that badly, that they would burn our flag. I don't have anything but contempt for them. There's ways to protest appropriately. And
exactly.
You can protest your government and what they're doing, and being happy. And I don't. I'm a believer in the First Amendment, but to me that exceeds First Amendment. But I know what the courts have said.
Well, we also have a U.S. flag code that protects the flag, so there's some things we have to, what's good or bad. Yeah. This picture is a little blurry, but this is from a 4th of July parade last year, and a young man on the far left, that's John Upton. John is a nurse, but he's also a lieutenant in the Texas State Guard now, so it's kind of neat. And then the gentleman here, second from the end, he has just recently returned from being overseas in the Middle East as well. So we got to meet some new veterans at the parade last year.
When is the parade this year? I know it's July 4th is on a Thursday.
Thursday, yes, sir.
So the parade is on a Thursday. Because I know sometimes they put it on a weekend for convenience.
The past few years, we've always done it on the 4th.
On the 4th, okay. Even if it's a Sunday?
I haven't seen a Sunday parade yet.
Yeah. Well, this town shuts down on Sundays for that kind. I don't know if they do that, but that gentleman looks familiar. For the young man, I mean. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I run across him somewhere, but
this young man won one of the national awards that the American Legion presents. When the school system here at Burleson and Joshua, the American Legion presents a National Scholastic and Leadership Award to our ROTC students. And we're working now trying to get the Civil Air Patrol out at Spinks included in that so we can do a leadership award out there for them.
I always enjoyed the ROTC program at Burleson High because, again, similar to the military, when they're freshmen, they'd be kind of wandering around and they're not attached to school and they don't care about school. And so we kind of encourage them, hey, join RTC. You'll be joining a group of people, mentor you a little bit. The older students will mentor you a bit. And I saw some real improvements academically with some of the RTC students. I rarely had grade trouble with any of those students because if I did, I'd go talk to Sergeant Mims, and that took care of it.
When the program started in 1980, Colonel Rudiger and Chief Master Sergeant Kaysen, I was in that first class.
Mm-hmm.
So 44 years later, I still remember lessons taught by them. So,
Oh, sure.
yeah, it's amazing. This is right here. This is over at Nola Dunn Academy for Veterans Day. And I've spoke twice over there to the students. The first time, I think I was misinterpreted what was going on because I saw a thing, would a veteran want to come speak to the one of the classes at Nola Dunn, and I'm thinking, okay, one of the kindergarten classes, because that's kind of what I understood. I got over there, and it was all K through 5. We had like 700 people in the auditorium.
Okay.
But this principal over at Nola Dunn, he is he grew up in a military family, and he is all about the kids learning about what goes on with our veterans in the community, and we brought our veterans up front. And this gentleman down here is our treasurer, Mr. Jim Krause. He was a major in the Army for his service in Vietnam. And we got to meet some of the other guys out there as well and have breakfast with them after we do the, get to speak to the kids. We'll have a little veterans breakfast afterwards. So it's a lot of fun to go over there and meet everybody.
Right. And the kids still, at that age, are still kind of in awe of the soldier and the sailor and whatnot. It's not... you know, some of these high school kids can be a bit of wise guys, but, you know, but, you know, I mentioned before about a friend of mine, and some of his old timers will remember John Mitchell, who served at the BHS up until his death in 2006. He died of a heart attack, but he was a Vietnam veteran, and, you know, and he had the stories. But he, you know, when I asked him to come talk to my history classes about the Vietnam experience, he would talk about, always like to be a daily soldier. He didn't get into war stories. He didn't talk about, you know, shooting this or whatnot. And there's always some Yahoo kid would ask, how many people you kill and that kind of crap. And he just said, you know, that's not something I'm going to talk about.
Right.
You know, because that's not what I'm here for. And move on and talk about service and whatnot. But he, you know, he and I would talk. We ate lunch together almost every day for several years. And some of the stories he told me were concerning, you know, hair raising, but that wasn't appropriate for school. He wasn't going to get into sensationalism.
Right.
And I worked for a man also in my career who was a Vietnam vet. He was really one of the few that would be comfortable talking about the more hair raising parts. But most of the veterans I knew didn't want to talk. You know, they didn't care about telling stories. Even my uncle, who was not a Vietnam vet, he's a World War II vet, flew 17 missions over Germany as a belly gunner. I didn't know that till his funeral. You know, he just didn't talk about it.
Well,
And that kind of, and I had told my cousins, his sons, and they didn't know either, you know, and so, because he just didn't talk about it. Because, you know, most of the stories I heard about my uncle's adventures I got from my dad, who, you know, they talk brother to brother, and my dad would say it, tell me what's going on. I had another uncle that was in Korea. Well, not in Korea. It was during the Korean War, but he was a mechanic at the Great Lakes Naval Station up in Michigan. And then my dad his military adventure was the Cuban Missile Crisis. He was in that hangar waiting to jump into Cuba, waiting that 24-hour period where it's looking like we're about to invade. And then about a year after he got into the reserves is when Vietnam really blew up, like we all know it to be. So... fortunately for our family, he avoided a lot of that.
right.
You know, have you ever been? Of course you've been to the National Cemetery over in Dallas.
Yes, sir.
You know, I teach.
My father's buried there.
Yes, I mean, have you not been? What kind of dumb question that would have been? But I teach DBU, so it's real close by, and I see it from one of the windows I teach at sometimes. Right. And my friend Mr. Mitchell, whom I remember just mentioned, is buried out there. My dad has a spot waiting for him if he wants it out there. It's impressive.
Yes, sir. Dallas is very nice, and what work they've done out there is amazing. I've been to Arlington National Cemetery. Excuse me.
I would like to go there before. That's on my bucket list.
You know, a lot of the guys who do the honor flight now get to go to Arlington, and several of them have talked about being there for taps to be played in the evening.
Oh, that must be might get you, right?
And I've seen that, heard it, and it's very. It kind of lets you know how insignificant you can be if you're a veteran, because you you're paying respects to people who made a sacrifice beyond what you made.
Right, and it's a lot of historical monuments out there, and markers. A lot of presidents are buried out there.
And a number of Medal of Honor winners and stuff that are out there. And Biloxi National Cemetery is another one that's it's historic, and it's amazing to be inside that one. But yeah, it's something.
Many years ago, about 20 years ago, I was in D.C. For a family trip. It wasn't the official thing. At the time, my in-laws lived in Richmond, Virginia, so we said, let's take about 3 days to go to D.C. since we're in the neighborhood, so to speak. And we go to, all the monuments there in D.C., and there was the Vietnam Wall. And I'm fortunate I didn't know any of the names of that wall in a sense, but I was clutched up. But I said, no, I don't want to get all teary-eyed in front of the wife and kids until I turned around and looked at my wife, and tears are down her face, and I just lost it because it really brought home what Vietnam in particular was about. Because I'm old enough to remember when it ended. I was 12 years old, and I remember my father got me out of bed one January day in 1973. He says, I want you to see this. And so we go to the TV room in our house, and I don't really know what I'm watching, right? I see people going in and out of this Paris hotel, and then, that's Henry Kissinger. I recognize him. And then we were signing the peace accords, right? And then I remember a couple years later when it all went to crap. I was in the 8th grade then, and I remember it. And that's what, I guess, I just remember the sacrifice of all those guys, and I see them on the wall.
Yeah, each name on that Vietnam Veterans Wall is a story untold.
You betcha. And nobody can look upon that and know the history of the war and the history of our country and not be emotionally affected by that. Right. But I bet you've seen it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And the traveling wall as well, so there's quite a bit. When you talk about the veterans, earlier you said something about the number of veterans here in our area. With the American Legion worldwide, because, we've got American Legion posts in Guam, France, Mexico. Currently, we have close to 2 million members in the American Legion worldwide and serving in 12,000 posts. Here in Texas, we're looking at 65,000 American Legion members and 480 posts.
Really? That's pretty good, but Texas always has been a source of military support.
Yeah, but you think 65,000 members, we've got over 380,000 veterans in what we call the DFW area. And in Houston, we're right at 300,000 veterans. So we're not seeing a lot of veterans involved in our veterans groups, but we see them as counts for political reasons. And that's kind of sad that we see that. That's of our veterans here in Texas, less than 5% are involved either in American Legion or other veteran groups, the VFW or the DAV, so forth.
Is it possible, because a good number of veterans, fortunately, did not have to serve in combat situations, and they may not feel like the Legion would either do anything for them, or they'd feel uncomfortable being around people that actually have been in combat? Do you think that might be the case?
We have some of our younger veterans that didn't deploy to global war and terrorism, like myself with Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Panama, that you run into a lot of our older veterans who they grew up around the World War II and then into the Korea veterans, and then they're in their own right, and their families were involved in veterans groups. Not as many that they are, and our younger veterans, they're raising families. They're involved in the baseball, the soccer, the school activities and stuff. So veterans groups are they know they're out there, but they're not a part of their daily activity, a part of what they're involved in as a family. And if you can raise a family today and have your kids being an impact and a mom or a dad to them, get after it. We'll be there to help if you need our help. Come ask. We'll see what we can do to help you. We think about a little bit of what we talked about, our 4 pillars. There's a lot of benefits, too, that are involved with the American Legion and some of our other veterans groups as well. But with the American Legion, we have financial services. We can do, like I say, the emergency grants earlier, help with utilities. There's also healthcare help that comes out of it. Family and community support's another area that we have help with. Of course, member discounts, we have quite a few of those, where anything from healthcare aids like wheelchairs and other stuff like that to electronics, computers. A lot of our car rental groups have things like that, travel benefits.
Do you have a website for all this?
Yes, sir. The national website, if you just look up the American Legion on Google or Chrome, it'll bring up and
Taylor
it'll
can
set
do
that
it.
up. Yeah.
Hey,
You can, or
he's
if you
really
put
good
in
at-
American Legion benefits, it gives you everything I've talked to about.
There it is.
Yeah. And
See,
then,
that's what good thing
there
about
you go.
Taylor. Boom.
Taylor's great.
Yeah.
There's also some insurance things out there. In 2010, USAA and American Legion got together, so we have some help through them for discounts. Mutual Omaha helps out with the veterans for life insurance, and even a company called Spot for pet insurance. So people who need that, it's out there.
Pet insurance. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of unique.
Yes, it is.
The American Legion also sponsors job fairs for careers. And then our youth scholarship programs, again, through our oratorical program, Boy State and Girl State, and the national awards. One of the things a lot of our youth don't get into, if they're thinking about going to a military academy, when I talk to people at John Cruz's office, or not,
Ted Cruz.
yeah, Ted Cruz, John Corinne's office. That's one of the things they screen for. Is this youth been involved in Eagle Scouts, or were they involved in Boy State, Girl State? And those are some of the things that puts them points ahead of other students when they look at them.
You know, you mentioned about the younger veterans. Okay, the kind of the generation I'm in, we are the post-Vietnam generation, so to speak. I graduated high school in 1980,
Yeah.
and I guess the best way to put it is the Army back then, the military back then, was in disarray. And because I told you the story prior to the show, you know, I really wasn't looking to join the military, but I thought maybe I should because of all the veterans in our family and all that. And my dad said he didn't trust the Army because of what had happened in the last decade or so. He didn't trust Mr. Carter, and we're not getting political about it. He just didn't think that they had a handle on things.
My dad was the same way. When I graduated in 83, I joined the Navy in 1984, and why would you do that? You're just going to get involved in a bunch of people who are just trying to get by in the world. They're not out to do anything or any good. And that was his whole attitude about any of the services at the time. But being in the Reagan Navy, and it's a reference you'll hear some of the vets of my age talk about. He made a lot of impact, and of course he was partial to the Navy being that he was, but our military really grew under his leadership and got really respected and stuff, and he recognized our Vietnam veterans for their service as well.
I think my dad was reflecting on what he saw, the lack of discipline in the Army, and the lack of support the country was giving the Army and military of all kinds after Vietnam, and how, you know, maybe some political areas were treating the veterans as like pariahs because they served in a war that was very unpopular, and he did not want that for me.
Right.
And I'm not the only one like that. Right. And so that's why, you know, people kind of kid me a little bit because I am a Reagan fan, and they kind of tease me about that. That's one of my biggest reasons why, because he made the military something to respect and be a real consideration to pursue as a future, and not just as a, well, I got nothing better to do kind of thing. And that's one reason I'm pretty fond of Mr. Reagan, among others.
Right.
But as far as all these benefits, I mean, how large is your group? I know it's not particularly large. How many members do you have in the local outfit?
Here in Burleson, we have 63 members on roster right now. We actually have just updated our roster this year. We're at 91%. We've had 4 members that are not responding to, you know, renewals, and in the past, a couple of our other members have said, "Okay, well, I'll just pay their dues for them." And this year, it's like, guys, let's see who's available, who's not, and we'll start over with our membership for next year, because every once in a while you have to realign things. You have to get accurate numbers. So on paper right now, I've got 59 members, and that's accurate and paid up to date. So yeah, it's not a lot compared to what the population of Burleson and our area is. For that group of members, we have 3 times that that are what they call post 345, which is they're members of the American Legion, but they get benefits, they get the magazine, that sort of stuff, but all their membership is in Austin at the state level instead of at the local level.
But with that number of people, it's all hands on deck when you have to do these kind of projects, isn't it?
Yeah, we can get a good group of people and our volunteer, to help out, and they a lot of our retirees that have something to do. But our young guys, if they get enough planning, and of course, if we're doing things on the weekends, they're out to help us. So it's rewarding. If you like to volunteer, it's nice to be able with a group of other people who share your same philosophy, same goals. And, being veterans, you have a comradeship that other people don't have. So some of the stories that you hear in private when you gain other people's trust, there's a lot of respect to people that you wouldn't even think that what they've been involved in their life.
Well, but the thing also in the latter generation, last 2 decades, the wars that we're fighting now are a whole lot different than what my family fought, what you fought. Have you noticed a difference in the vets?
Yeah.
You're going to find a way to say this tactfully, huh?
Well, it's not that it's tactfully, Before the show started, I kind of shared with you our country establishing a military, fighting into, different wars with World War I, World War II, Korea, and the Vietnam. When we think about more modern history, we've always fought armed militaries, governments, other countries that had a military sponsor.
Recognizable enemies.
Yeah, they were in a uniform. They were this. Of course, the Japanese had their Bushido code, so they were fighting that ideal along with the government. In Vietnam, our Vietnam vets, they saw some of the guerrilla warfare, some of the things, because not everybody was in a uniform. And, they were introduced to women and children being used against them. Desert Shield, Desert Storm, of how it happened with the invasion of Kuwait, how the country responded with the coalition forces being there and being part of it. We were fighting the Iraqi army, the Iraqi military. It didn't matter if you were a foot soldier, a sailor, or an airman, there was a reason we were there. Once that conflict ended, and support, after Saddam Hussein was out and establishing a new country, a new government, you're trying to help the people better. The other groups arose, with Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, and the offshoots that are out there. And now you're not fighting a uniformed adversary. You're fighting ideals. You're fighting religious thoughts. You're fighting into people who have morphed those into their own way of living. And, our returning global war on terrorism, our Afghan vets, all those, they didn't see a uniform. They saw people, and they didn't know who is the enemy and who's not.
I'm not really trying to equate that with a Hollywood movie, but remember American Sniper, one of the opening scenes was him debating whether to shoot this small child that may or may not have been carrying a explosive device. And that's the kind of story I heard from these other vets is that even though they were wearing the same uniform, we didn't know if they would turn on them. Again, when there were stories about that happening, right?
Right.
And so that's probably what led to some of the PTSD problems. It's not just the combat experience, but the constant 24-hour tension of knowing that. The
unknowing that they go through.
Right.
Yes, sir. And our veterans today, that's the 2 biggest things that our veterans today have to deal with are PTSD and mental health issues. And then the other part of that is dealing with family. We see a lot of, I talk with our younger veterans that want to engage. You can't force somebody to talk to you. But if you introduce yourself, you take some time and you have a little compassion towards them, and can I do anything for you? Is there anything you'd like to talk about? A lot of those guys that saw the women, the children thing that got involved with not knowing who's who, what's going to happen on the street, that even those innocent women and children were targeted to make a statement because they weren't part of those factions that were fighting over there. Our veterans that saw that, when they come home, they may have families at home, or they may be getting engaged, getting married, and raising families, and they have some disconnect there. So helping the mental aspect of that is really a key function now, and seeing how do we get those guys to the right help. And the VA's made strides, but locally we need more support for the veterans and our first responders that go through a lot of stuff.
It's somewhat similar, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned your military service. What was that specifically?
I went in the Navy in 1984. I did 9 years active duty and 6 years in reserves. The first ship I went on to was a amphibious landing ship out of Little Creek, Virginia. Went to the Mediterranean in 1986 on it and came back, and they sent us to the shipyards in Baltimore, Maryland, at Dundalk's Sparrows Point shipyard up there. And while we're there, they changed the platform designation to a special warfare platform. So I went from my job of being a gunner's mate, taking care of shipboard weapon systems, to training more as a Navy armorer and working with small arms, and then working with the groups associated with our special warfare commands, the SEAL teams, the Marine Corps Battalion, Force Recon, Anglico, Army Green Berets, Delta Force, people like that. So a lot of fun there. And then I left that and went to Charleston. I went to Gulfport, Mississippi, with the Sea Beast for a few years. Interesting group of people.
Well, you mentioned Panama and you mentioned Kuwait. You were involved in those.
Yes, sir. I served there in Panama, and then the Persian Gulf. 3 trips to the Persian Gulf was enough.
Enough, okay. Yeah.
But other areas of the country, not only of states, but overseas, working with support groups overseas in different areas too, during my reserve time, was interesting as well.
Well, it's you saw some times, and didn't you?
Yeah. I've got to do things other people wouldn't do. I've been to the top of an Egyptian pyramid. I've climbed to the top of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I've been through the Panama Canal, and I've been through the Suez Canal. But I took everything I learned, and I have a job today thanks to the service, and I got an education because of it.
What is it? What do you do for a living?
I'm an automation technician for a distribution warehouse. So I do electronics, mechanics, robotics, pneumatic, all that stuff.
Oh, stuff that's over my head, in other words. I want to do a couple of shout outs to a couple of groups. Taylor, did you get the Railroaders website up? I forgot to ask. Oh, yeah. The Cleveland Railroaders are a new sponsor. And they're in town this week, and they do great work. They do a lot of stuff with the nonprofits. Like last week, they did one for a colorectal cancer group and another one for the first responders. They got an event coming up on the 22nd for our Harvest House. So they're really good people. And Kay Goodell will be here Thursday morning to talk more about this. So, I just want to give them a holler because they do such good work. And I don't know, you have to be a baseball fan. I mean, if you can't be in the American Legion and not be a sports fan, I would imagine. I mean, you don't talk about politics and war all the time.
We try to stay away from politics, and it's actually funny to say that you're not a political group, but because the way politics evolves in this country, it affects the veterans and our military daily. So.
Well, anyway, check out the Railroaders again this week. It's good baseball, and it's affordable baseball. Also, I had this event happen in my home. I was talking about it before. My bathroom flooded, and it flooded into my bedroom and then part under the wall into the living room and library area. And I had 2 of my, it was just lots of fun. And so, But a couple of my BNI friends really took care of me. One was Stop Restoration. They've been on the show before. I just want to give Lisa and Morris Smith a shout out because they were there. I called them about an hour after discovered it, and because I knew that all the towels in the house weren't going to fix this problem. And they were there, and it took care of business, and they did a great job. And their men worked, and they were personable, and they didn't waste time, and they took care of me really, really quickly. And the second one I want to talk is Texas Farm Bureau, Melissa Harmon. I just been talking to her this morning. Their agent, or their adjuster rather, came out this morning. I should be taken care of by tomorrow, and that's a great thing. So thank you, Melissa. I'm really pleased that I got in with Texas Farm Bureau because I didn't have any hassles or no delays in getting taken care of. So I'm as fortunate to have those BNI friends to help me with that. Well, we have a couple of minutes left. Mr. Mason, you have the last word. Tell us in summary what you'd like to know, all of us to know.
Well, again, thank you for having me out here.
No problem. My honor.
If there's somebody out there that knows a veteran and their family or works with or church, whatever, and they're withdrawn or they don't like to talk to people, whatever, contact the American Legion here in Burleson. Let us try to reach out to them. The easiest way to get a hold of us is at ALPost 235 at yahoo.com. That's our post adjutant, Bob. He monitors that daily. He'll take emails and forward them out to one of us that needs to do something. We can help those guys go to, if they need to talk to somebody in a medical profession, if we think that they may have had some issues with PTSD or depression, those things weigh on people and it affects them in their daily lives. So the focus right now is we got to prevent veteran suicide, and we need to help our local veterans get better mental health care. And
then your next public appearance, I guess, is July 4th parade.
Public, yeah. Well, we have Flag Day on the 14th.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that.
Yes, sir. Yeah. The Wednesday, I'll be meeting with our Burleson Youth Association for baseball sponsorship. Thursday, the American Legion has their general membership meeting over at the Boulevard Baptist Church. Friday, Flag Day, will be over at Tri-Cities VFW off of County Road 920 up by the precinct barn doing our flag retirement ceremony. July the 4th parade on that Thursday starts at 9. I think I sent you an invitation to come ride with us. So,
I was very honored by that, and I will be there. It starts at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, and we'll start lining up around 7:30. Try to get up towards the front, because if you're in the back, you may be waiting a while to go through that.
Believe me, I used to do the homecoming parades for BHS. I did probably 14 of them in my high school career at the BHS, so I know exactly what you're talking about. They still line up at the what used to be the Kerr Middle School parking lot.
Yes, sir. Back behind the old football field over there.
Right.
Yes, sir. We'll be over there, and our unit will have a Kawasaki towing a flatbed trailer with 4 flags out on top of it. So you'll see us.
What should I be wearing?
Whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay, so
everybody tries to wear red, white, and blue, but all of our Legionnaires have to wear their Legion hats when they're out there. So, yeah.
Well, I'll find something that is as close to, or I'll go find something. I know where I could find red, white, and blue shirts. My dad has a whole closet full of them. So
there you go.
So
we look forward to that. And of course, through the rest of the summer, we have our normal meetings, and then when school starts up, we'll start sponsorship with the air rifle team through our junior shooting sports program, and we'll be looking more to the fall where we do some events with the city and look at what Bailey may need from her end over at Parks and Recreation.
I really do appreciate the invitation. I told my dad about it, and he was like, "Well, you didn't fight, I had to go, "Well, okay, Dad."
Bring him along. We'll have room.
I would like to, but he's getting to the point where it's getting harder.
Right, understand. Understand.
So, Taylor, thank you for your nimbleness on the computer as always. And tomorrow, I have another BNI friend, Melissa Woods, who's a travel agent, Janet Woods Travel. And summer vacation time is here. She's going to tell you how to avoid some of the pitfalls. And then I have a doubleheader, which is appropriate for Thursday, Kay Goodell Railroaders. And then I'm going to, I forgot already who, I'm getting that point too myself. Have the Kay Goodell, and then also have another BNI friend, named Sydney Milstead, who's going to talk about insurance, because there's a lot going on in insurance. And I thought she'd be a really good guest to have to help navigate through all this business. So thank you, sir, for everything you do. Service then, service now. And I look forward to the 4th of July.
Great. Look forward to it.
All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow.